Bienvenido a Alimentalk, el podcast que discute los avances científicos y tecnológicos para una alimentación sostenible.
Ciao Vincenzo, how are you doing today?
Ciao Mariluz, muy bien, molto bene, very good.
Oh, thank you for agreeing to have this conversation with us today. So, for those who still don't know Vincenzo Fogliano, he's a professor in the group of food quality and design in the Wageningen University and Research. He is a food scientist, but more than that, he's a food lover, I will say. He's originally from Naples, from where he's broadcasting at the moment. And he works between the Netherlands and Italy. So I don't know, Vincenzo, something else you want to add to this short description of yours?
I also love Spanish, South America, and
that's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, nice people.
But you have been here in Latin America?
Yes, I was sometimes, but not as much as I would like to be.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, Vincenzo, the topic that you have chosen for today is very trendy in Latin America, very controversial and speculative. So we hope with your contribution, our audience had a better look at what is happening in the world of what is so-called ultra-processed foods. So before to start, Vincenzo, I remind the people who is in this live today that you will have the chance to ask questions to Vincenzo. So please feel free to leave them in the comment section under the link you are seeing this broadcast. And you can write them in Spanish, in English, in Italiano, in Dutch, I guess. So I'm sure Vincenzo is going to be, yeah, in Dutch too, is going to be very happy to answer, right? So Vincenzo, I know you really like this topic. So could you please begin explaining the audience what is being defined as ultra-processed or highly processed food?
Yes, Mariluz. So the story is that for different reasons, there is a need to classify food. And normally we classify food based on the nutrient composition. So high energy, low energy, high sugar, low sugar. This is something that is objective and we can easily do based on numbers. At a certain point, there will start the need, especially from people in the nutritional field, to classify the food based on processing, on the degree of processing. And that's, of course, it's not that easy. And there were already in the past many of these classification based on processing. But the topic became very popular recently because the group in Brazil, led by a guy named Monteiro, they propose a classification called NOVA. And NOVA classification introduced also this name of ultra-processed food that are include all the food that, in theory, the food that have a heavily processed. So we can call highly processed food. The point is that in this category, basically there are a lot of different products. So we can discuss today, but it's very difficult to define at the end which are the product highly processed or ultra processed, because there are many. We know that processing has many nuances, many shades, and so it's not how they are processed that to me. It's of course relevant as a food technology. I would say how it's processed, not if it is processed or not. So, and unfortunately, NOVA classification doesn't take into account the how. It's just the fact that they are processed. And so it's in many aspects is more a philosophical classification. So that I can say very bluntly, according to the NOVA classification, if you process something in your kitchen, no matter how much oil, frying, sugar you put, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. But if you do processing in an industry, then whatever you do is bad. So that's a classification that, of course, intend to put the industry in a bad look. And actually, in my opinion, is a classification that is creating a lot of problems. But maybe you want to ask more before I go free.
Yeah,
for,
no.
for
It
that.
I just want to recap a little bit what you just said is that, I mean, this classification is supposedly based on the degree of processing, but it's not. Actually, what they say is more about the ingredients or the additives that it has, and is misleading people and consumers to let's say demonize a little bit the food processing, which has been serving the food humanity for years, is what you're saying.
Exactly, and it's not a little bit, really demonizing, and that's
Demonize.
demonizing. For instance, for the use of preservatives, like all the preservatives are terrible, and we know that actually preservatives very often are, first of all, are strictly regulated. So I always say to my students, if a preservative is used in a food, this is for sure not toxic in any way, even long term, whatever. The regulation on preservatives is very strict. Second, you can easily see that most of the preservatives that are used are actually compounds that you can find in other food, like ascorbic acid or citric acid,
Exactly.
benzoate. I mean, are actually often more concentrated in some type of strange food or normal food, respected the concentration that are used as preservatives. So again, if you preserve your food at home, putting some lemon juice, perfect. It's traditional. It's like my mother used to do, so it's fine. If you put the same amount of citric acid, then is a terrible preservative, then you are gonna dead. So that's gonna die. So that's really
Yeah,
strange,
there's a
right?
big issue. I mean, what this issue that you are bringing that is just already a big hype. What are the problems that are being associated to the food industry? How food industry are facing this global hype, and what is happening also in Europe?
Oh, the food industry, I always say food industry are not very brave. The food industry are kind of typically, try to hide and try to hope that the next storm are not going to hit me, and the hope that maybe hit my competitors and not me. But in this case, let's say that all the food industry is influenced. Uh, Also because, as I said, the NOVA classification, this definition of ultra-processed food, do not allow them to improve. So if you do, I don't know, meat replacer, now, meat analog and so on, I mean, this would be ultra-processed anyway. You can do whatever you want. It's always, so they cannot improve, right? So it's not like other topic like, okay, let's reduce the sugar. It's difficult to reduce the sugar in some, but I can try to do something. I can use sweeteners. I can change the
Yeah.
formulation, but with this, I cannot do nothing. I mean, I'm with the shoulder on the wall, and I have just to surround. But it's surrender. But this is, yeah, bit strange, right?
Yeah, it's a bit strange because I mean it doesn't really make sense. But just going back to what you just said about the food industry not being brave, I can imagine it's also that they always, or we as a food industry representative, we are also always looking for satisfying consumers' demands. And nowadays, this is a consumer demand that is driven by actually not just this Nova system and many institutions that are, but also by influencers and people in social media. I think this is getting a very high hype, and I don't know. I think is misleading and also, yeah, I don't know, making people just be more confused. But I just wanted to mention that about being brave. It's just that it's not easy to make the balance between satisfying consumer demands and also, yeah, trying to make a very good product for nutrition
But
and everything.
you are right at pointing out the the consumer point of view, because consumer actually do not distinguish the story of the ultra processing from other trends that are very important, like naturality, organic. So these are important words in the visible, something that you can recognize, not the food that I want to know what I'm eating. So these are all important trends that are not necessarily correlated to the degree of processing, but in the mind of the consumer they are. So it's nice to explain the consumer that something can be 100% natural in terms of ingredient, can be 100% organic, but it's also processed, because it's not that only the raw stuff, the raw material are healthy. So we have done some nice exercise showing how, for instance, in the bars, the candy bars, in general, the bars, there are many different type of bars, and they are all ultra processed by the definition NOVA. So it doesn't matter if you have a candy bar, or if you have a protein bars, or maybe you have a nut bar, very healthy with the nuts and fruit. Is a bar, is ultra processed. So it's you understand where the problem starts.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. But from your scientific background, because I know you have already a big group and that had gathered a lot of information, I know you can answer a little bit of this answer, but I mean, it's big. But is a natural product healthier than a processed product?
No, the naturality, if you ask me about the naturality of the product, no, of course, is a concept that is a perception of the consumers. They really perceive that something that is natural is also a word that doesn't mean really nothing in terms of what is natural. It's also natural if you grab weeds in your garden, and that can kill you. That's so natural doesn't mean nothing. We are trying to collect data, especially about consumer perception. This is and I think this can be a very important tool for industry, for developing things. How to combine the story. So that the fact that you want something that is natural, that fulfill the consumer perception of natural, but at the same time that it's safe and is handy and so on. I mean, milk is a nice example. The milk is natural, okay, come from the cow, fantastic. But then if you make pasteurized milk, UHT milk, okay, maybe still is a kind of a non-processed. If you make a powder out of the milk, this is not perceived as natural anymore, because in the mind of the consumer, milk is liquid. So the moment that you make a powder out of the milk, then is not natural anymore. And then with that powder milk, you make all the confectionery product. So that's so then all the confectionery is not natural. It's a bit strange also there.
Yeah, but also, well, I would like you to elaborate a little bit, just for the people that maybe are not really familiar with the topic. What could be the advantage of processing that are not really taken care in this NOVA system classification that we should consider?
Okay, that's what I always say. I mean, we as a humankind, we became a human thanks to the cooking of food, to the processing of food. So, I mean, otherwise you are still monkey eating fruit from the tree. So, processing food is essential. It's give you safety, first of all. You know, the safety is very, very important. Do you remember the movie, the one with the guy lost in Alaska, Into the Wild? I don't know if you have seen this movie. It was very famous. Into the Wild. And this guy decided to go in Alaska in the middle of the ice. Okay. At a certain point, this guy was starving with with no food, he was able to kill a moose, a big animal. Okay, so he was starving, and so he ate as much as possible of this animal, but then he was not able to store the animal. So he was not a food technologist, so he didn't came to the idea to put. And at the end, the guy died. Very sad movie. But the point I always say, you should be able to store the food. And to store the food, we know that the best way is to process it in heating. So safety and security is the second things that food technology allows. So food is safe, and we give it for granted. We forget how dangerous can be the food. But because when you are in the supermarket, you give for granted that everything is healthy, is safe. But this is thanks to food technology. And then the security. You make your shop, your grocery, they stay in the pantry, and maybe with some rice and beans, you can survive for months. So this is food security, and it's also extremely important. So these are, I think, the two pillars of processing. Third pillar is the taste. Think beautiful potato, raw. You don't go anywhere. I mean, with a raw potato. If you can cook the potato, can process the potato, you have dozens of super nice products that you can, and that's also important. The taste, that is related to processing at the end, and also industrial processing, of course. So this is, I don't mention the digestibility. There are so many aspects related to the advantage of processing, and of course there are some disadvantages. I think it's important to say, we as a scientist, we should recognize also that sometimes there are specific problems related to processing. The formation of acrylamide in processed food, it's a point. I mean, acrylamide is potentially toxic, so we have to mitigate the formation. Well, we will do, but we don't stop to eat the food because there is a little amount of acrylamide. That could be a disaster.
Usually people are concerned about the nutritional part, but with processing, actually, many times you make more available nutrients are also what you just said. Digestibility also improves. So this is also very important that sometimes people don't consider. Vincenzo, we have some...
Okay,
go ahead.
It's a question. No, I want just to say another point, because it's what we call affordability. The processed food, on average, is less expensive than the fresh counterpart. So when you buy something fresh, it's more expensive than the same type of food processed. So the point, that's also an important point. The fact that if you convince the population that they have to eat only fresh food, at the end, they have to spend more to get their food. And maybe for rich people, this is not a problem, because at the end, food is not that expensive. So if I spend, personally myself, if I would spend the double for having my food, to me, wouldn't be an enormous problem. But for other people, can be. And so, it's also dangerous to make all this story about the freshness, and because then if some people cannot afford, how they feel. They feel bad, or they decided to give away, I don't know, the medical doctors control, and they buy, only fresh food. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, this is a matter of food security too. Well, we have a question, and that is, what is the European Union scientific community doing to demystify food processing?
Yeah, it's a big debate also in Europe, but as I said, it's not easy. You know that the University Wageningen in the Netherlands, it's a kind of a leader in the research in food science. So we are now performing a project that's called restructuring. The idea of this project is to make a human trial where we are gonna feed the people with let's say, an unprocessed diet and a processed diet, or ultra-processed diet, if you want to use the definition of the NOVA, to show that there are no differences in the two groups. This is important because there was a study done previously, similar study made by a guy called Kevin Hall, sorry. And in these studies, they found big difference. So the group eating ultra-processed food, they gain 1 kilo in 1 month, while the other group in unprocessed food, this group of people lose 1 kilo in 1 month. So there was an enormous impact of giving free diet with the two types. But we do believe that that study was not very well designed, because there are many confounding factors that should have been considered. It's a bit designed to obtain the results that they want to obtain. So we want to do a study that is well controlled in our criteria to see what happened, because as a scientist we have to be unbiased, so we want to really see what happened. And so this is what we can do as a scientist. So try to produce better science to explain why. And then there is some sort of lobbying action by the industry association and so on to avoid the use of this name that now we are talking here in this banner, ultra processed food, but probably we should not use this notation, because in this way we just give credit to something that personally doesn't deserve to have this credit.
Okay. Well, we have another question from the audience. How do you imagine the future of these products and the industry? You have the crystal ball. What do you see?
Let's say, okay, we have a problem. We as a food industry, and we cannot deny this. The problem is that the food industry create, not because of solely fault, but is part of what we call obesogenic environment. So what is obesogenic environment is what is surrounding us is so plenty of food, high caloric density, that if you are not really strict with yourself, you're going to become obese because you eat too much. So in this environment, what happened? That high educated people, female that are relatively more restrained than men, are able to control. You know that, we finish our conversation, I cannot go and eat 2,000 kilocalories of pizza because I'm in Naples today. So I know, and I have maybe half of a pizza or a small pizza, and that's enough. Then I don't. But if someone is not restrained, at the end of the day, the food is so always available. You open your fridge and you have all sort of easy to eat food. So the question to the industry is, can you put something better on this fridge? So can we be able to make something better that is not food that punish the consumer, not something that is ugly to eat? Because at the end, the same people that are not restrained, they are not going to eat something that is not very tasty. So the challenge for the food industry is to create food that are tasty, as good as the junk food we have now, but not giving a lot of calories. That's my dream. And what I would like to achieve with my research.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that already responded the question we have, that it was more about the challenges of food industry. So, well, what else do we have? We already spoke about the big problem, and we already have like an overview what is happening with the consumers and this mistrust they have in the term food processing. What will be then from you, I mean, from as a scientist, to suggest to the scientists in this community of Latin America could be the gaps we should feel to give more evidence to this topic? What should we work on?
I think that's now a little bit where I'm directing my research, but it's really plenty of possibility. Is in the idea is to work on the food design. My chair is food quality and design. So, what does it mean? Design food is really make an engineer plan on the food. So it's not just partially can be reformulation. So try to make instead of sugar you put more fibers or maybe something that is not digestible. But reformulation is something that does not maybe require high level food science. Reformulation is a bit of changing the recipe and obtaining something nice. The design is thinking to the food and looking at the structure, because at the end, the structure, the matrix is what we like in a food. If you have a creamy ice cream or a crispy bread, is what you want to have is this sensory feeling in the mouth and the taste. So we have the challenge is don't change the taste, but don't change the structure, and having a food that is at the end less digestible or slowly digestible, because what the problem of what of these highly processed food is that they are often high in energy and very easy to masticate and to swallow. So at the end, there is a parameter that we call eating rate. So how fast, how many calories per minute you can eat. And if you think this is an incredibly powerful parameters. So if you can eat a lot in few minutes, you are going to ingest many, many calories before you feel any satiety signal. So that's the moment that you eat too much. And then maybe after you say, come on, I have had too much. But then you feel something 20 minutes later. So the point is that we have to design food that are not so easy to masticate and swallow. They have to go down, but without having, something that is hard to chew and become something really I spit out instead of swallow. So,
could you provide examples on that?
Yeah, a very, very easy example, something that probably everybody have experienced, the McDonald's or the fast food burger. So you think always to the burger, to the meat, but think to the bread. Which is the bread outside that burger? Something that is super soft and is basically you swallow in 1 second together to the burger. Okay, if you take that bread and you just make it a little bit more crispy, not a bad bread, but something that is a bread, a little bit more crispy, also tasty, and try to eat that one with a burger. Take more time. You have to masticate, you have to enjoy, and at the end of the day, the same exact amount of calorie results in a slower eating rate, higher satiety, and you are not gonna have a second burger. That's something often happen. You go to the fast food, you have the first mac cheese or whatever, and you say, I'm still hungry, I have another one. And now you have two, and that's the excess of calorie. So if you just change in that case, easy, the type of bread, and that's published by some group, I'm reporting published literature, you obtain the same calorie, longer eating rate, and a different, at the end, the same satiety. So that's a convincing example.
Yeah, I like it. It was very,
Another nice we have done completely different last year with the PhD in Wageningen. Very often people eat in front of the TV something, a sauce, a mole, like Mexican mole, or a creamy cheese, and some crackers or some crisp that you use to do this. Okay, we put people in front of the screen with this bowl of cheese And crackers are two different shape. One was a square like this, and one was finger like this. What happened? If you have the finger, you pick up. Yeah, you cannot scoop very much. Huh? You put the finger biscuits in a cheese and you eat and you enjoy. But if you have a square, you really make like a spoon and you take a lot of cheese. Okay. At the end, people was watching a movie. And they are free. They didn't know that we were measuring what they did. There was a scale behind the table, so we calculate the amount, but they have no idea. They think that we were asking to make some question about the movie. So it's completely different story. And at the end, those having the finger, they ate much less calorie than those with the square. But the interesting point, they were both happy. They were both satisfied, completely full. They say, no, I don't want to have anything more. So, and they had 20% of calorie less. So That's what I have in mind, that you can, let's say, fool our mind, because eating is also a matter of mind, just changing parameters, texture, context, shape, amount of free starch or highly digestible starch. There are many parameters we can change.
Yeah, thank you, because you have given us just like a broader, let's say, more dimensions to the food design, because usually you focus on the formulation and the processing itself, but what you just said is just that you have also to study the eating experience of the consumer, the actual mind, and also I would say even psychological tests on that. So there are all many dimensions that we can use in the food design in order to provide healthier food. So I think it's a very nice approach.
And also we can use a fancy technology to do this, because now everybody's in love with this 3D printing of the food.
Yeah.
But that's, 3D print biscuits. You can do this, making a structure that then is take more time to masticate, but still is crispy, or maybe it's good to put in your milk. Just changing the structure, and you can use the 3D printing for good, not just to make fancy shape. And the same with extrusion. And now is also, so it's interesting because we have now technology that are, of course, all ultra processed technology. The 3D printing of extrusion is not something that you can classify as minimally processed, but at the end it can be used for good.
Yeah, indeed. Vincenzo, we have a question. It's quite long, but it's very interesting. So, how do you think people are going to understand concepts such as lab-made protein, meat, dairy, etc., in contrast to process? So, in other words, how likely is that people end up thinking that, for instance, cellular agriculture is another artificial, dangerous way to food production and processing instead of more sustainable way to perform resource by transformation? So you brought another topic, cellular agriculture.
Cellular agriculture, fantastic. It's a very good question. The food of the future, we call it. Of course, the whole story of the cellular agriculture is that we sell it because of sustainability. So the idea, let's say that I'm not saying that I'm agree, but just to explain to everybody, the main narrative around cellular agriculture is that we can be able producing in the cells, for instance, protein at less environmental cost, less carbon footprint than a cow or a sheep that is on the field. Okay, so that's what we expect. So we have to be very good in explaining this, and that this can become the main point for the consumers, because of course this type of food will never be natural, because it's everything but natural, I would say. So this, of course, at a certain point there will be a conflict between this cellular agriculture and the all the nice food of the ancient time. That's for sure. I think that it will be, as usually in the food market, there are always shares. It's always, the cellular agriculture, if we will be able to produce at a reasonable price, will become adopted by those that are very much environmentally conscious, and they are maybe already now conscious that eating a lot of soy proteins is not necessarily something that is really much better than consuming meat from animals from the environmental point of view. So in this respect, there is a lot of attention. I like very much the topic. Honestly, as a scientist, we should jump into it because it's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic, the production, but it's also fantastic for food scientists because the proteins that are produced by the cellular agriculture, I mean, nutritionally, it can be fantastic, but the technological function, so what we call the techno-functional properties, are not the same than the original one. So even if they do egg protein in a cells, those egg proteins are not good to make your frittata, omelette. How do you say in Spanish? Omelette?
It's omelette, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That one.
Tortilla?
The tortilla.
Well,
it's
I
not
don't
very
know.
good to make your tortilla. Yeah. So
yeah.
There where the food technologists can step in. They can produce the protein, but then we can work together to make from this protein good food.
I was wondering, now that somebody brought this topic, how we classify these cellular agriculture products under the NOVA system? That would be like minimally processed or
that's interesting. That would be an interesting. I mean, in the at the moment is out of the radar of those that work with this NOVA classification. In principle, I mean, if you just harvest from the cells, it's still unprocessed, right? Because
exactly.
So it should be the maximum. But I don't know. I don't really remember because I mean all this cellular agriculture. Let's start to say that is a novel food, GMO. So we are talking something that probably for the people of NOVA mentality, it's really the Frankenstein food. So not something.
Yeah, I think so.
So
yeah, well, I think we will. This deserves another episode by itself. I think it's a very big and interesting topic.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we already are reaching our end of this conversation. Vincenzo, I don't know if you want to add something, I mean, to give a message to the people that work with us today. Something that you want to add?
I guess most of the audience is food technology side, right? There are not many nutritionists in this audience, or vice versa. Am I correct?
Honestly, I usually yes, it's from food technologies, but you can. I mean, the podcast is listened by diverse audience, so you can say to everyone.
No, I think that I talk very much as I was talking to a bunch of food technologists there. So probably, but I would like to say that the message of becoming closer to the reality of food, what is the composition, but also the matrix, the nature. It's very important also for those that give nutritional advice. So up to now, most of those doing this work, either they go into this naturality, organic, blah, blah direction, or they really remain very stick to the nutritional tables and with this program that you can do the diet. And in this program, the structure of the food is not considered. So to me, I really understood in these years of studying that the structure is even more important than the content in many foods. So it's something that we should pay more and more attention when we give nutritional advice. As you said before, Mariluz, is physiological, but it's also psychological factors and behavioral factor in the consumers that have an important role. So especially for those that really, love the food science, embrace this way of looking at the food science in a more broader view. It's extremely important. So that's what I would advise, especially for those of you that started a career in this field. Don't stay just in your, super narrow topic and looking only at the fat, but try to embrace the complexity of the food world.
Okay, well, I just wanted to mention also that the audience are just regular consumers as well. So, this is also very nice for them just to have another overview of what is happening in the world of food processing.
Yes, for the consumers, of course, I'm apologize if I was a bit too technical in some aspect, but yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. We like your
clear.
technicality. So, well, unfortunately, we definitely run out of time. So we have seen the issue of ultra-processed or highly processed food and how it's important to highlight the definition that requires attention to avoid confusion to consumers regarding their healthy choices, right? So, of course, the food industry will be continuously searching the alternatives to provide healthy foods. And with the support of food science and technology, I believe that is possible. So I am a believer of food science, of course. So we have a very big responsibility in providing food for the growing future of population. As Martin said, that what is happening in the future, we have to feed people. So we are really committed to that goal. I think Vincenzo agrees with me.
Yes.
Okay, Vincenzo, I just want to thank you so much for this very nice conversation. So I really enjoy listening to you as always. And well, I hope in the future we'll have some other cooperation, or maybe we make another episode. I don't know.
For sure. Thank you very much, Mariluz. And bye-bye to all the friends from Colombia.
Well, just thank also to the audience that joined us today. I invite you to the next episode. It will take place February 28th, very soon. So I also invite you to follow the podcast in Spotify. Thank you very much from the Alimentalk team, and I see you soon. So bye-bye.